Well, welcome to the San Diego Argonauts Sail Point races for the month of October 2011. This is the Soling 50 series of races. There are 3 races, but I will tell you that we did not get the first race on video, but this is race number 2 that's coming up right now. It's the middle of the afternoon in San Diego. Winds settle in fairly well. I'd say 6 to 8 knots. From the west, that line you see, the start line between the 2 red buoys, is a fair starting line, but we do have the normal shifts in San Diego, a little bit from the left, some from the right. So you want to be keeping an eye out for those. I'm number 81, the red boat, passing in the foreground. I have a camera mounted on the top of my hat, so wherever my head is looking is the picture that you're going to see. So 5 seconds till the start. 3, 2, 1. And we get a pile of boats at the pin end here.
All clear. Rich, what's going on here? Here we go.
Now a couple of boats shot through, and the 4 boats that were right at the pin end, there were 4 boats that shot through. Actually 2 of the 4 boats shot through, and the other 2 boats kind of got bogged down, I being one of those boats. It's best not to get things mixed up at the start line, but sometimes it's inevitable and that's just going to happen. So I've gotten, finally worked a wave, got some clean air. That was not a good start. It would be a good rules corner lesson to go back and play that start in slow motion and kind of analyze what's going on. Maybe we'll do that at some later time. But I've got off some clean air.
Look close, 116.
And I had a port tacker coming up who tried to tack on my lee bow, but that was way too close to be acceptable. He's done his 360. I'm on starboard tack, and that's a pretty good looking lift. That's a good lift for the winds today. I'm back up with the leaders. I have not real clean air, but fairly clean air. At some point I'm going to tack onto port. Not sure exactly when. Here we go. There I am. I do have clear air at this point. We're not sailing on a big header, although it's not a big lift. Wind's up and down a little bit. You can see the wind's gotten a little bit lighter. That wind got a little calm. Now it's filling back in. The boat's heeling over. So you got good weight coming off the boat. At this point I'm pulling my Soling 50 sails in about as tight as I'm going to be able to do that. You're seeing the offset and reach mark come into view in your screen right now. I'm out to the starboard ley line. I probably went a little further than I needed to, but I wanted to play this safe in case that wind continued to get light.
Got a battery shifting.
Yeah, now it did lighten up. Boat's standing up. But again, because I overstood just a little bit, I was able to keep the boat moving and keep it driving. So I've got around the weather mark and the offset mark in reasonably good shape. I'm sitting 3rd right now. The majority of the boats are behind me. That was not a good start, but when you have a lot of boats around you, it's just going to be difficult to do much in that situation. All you can try to do is keep your air clear, keep the boat moving. Again, that would be a good rules corner slow motion video to run and analyze. Okay, so I'm in pretty good shape here at this point. We're working down to a reach mark, which is down the pond on the far side of your screen. Now I think at this point we're going to break off and go to race number 2. Take a look at that. Okay, it's now 30 seconds until the start of the 3rd and last race in this series. Wind staying pretty much the same, 6 to 8 knots out of the west. That's a fair starting line. My start, the last race was not very good. We're going to try to do a better job this time. 15 seconds. Everybody wants to approach from starboard, of course. I'm the red boat. I'm looking pretty good. Nobody's pushing me. I'm not barging. I was almost a little bit early there, but got off to a good start. I have clear air. Boat was heeled over fairly well when we started out there. That makes it a little bit tough to drive the boat. But we're accelerating, wind's coming in. I was getting a little bit of bad air from the starboard tacker down to leeward of me, so I tacked off onto port. Got not a big lift. Well, actually right now that's a reasonably good lift coming in on port tack here, working toward the shore. I'm going to run out of room doing this here pretty quick. And of course I'm hoping the wind's going to shift and I'm going to get headed here, go back on port. We'll see if that happens. Well, certainly not a great lift on starboard, but it's reasonable. Got the majority of the fleet down below me on the left-hand side. Very puffy wind. You can see the boat just kind of bouncing up and down as the wind puffs are hitting it. I'm just trying to keep the boat moving, let it ride up into the wind a little bit as best I can. It's difficult conditions. Look how high number 5 is sailing in the foreground on your screen. There's the good starboard tack lift. That's what you want to have your eyes out for. It's kind of going away now and he's headed down. But again, our wind is a little on the puffy side right now, so that's going to happen. It's going to shift with those puffs. Okay, I am on starboard because that lift is coming again. Again, it's puffy. The boat's going up and down. I'm just trying to sail the boat as best I can. I'm sure I'm adjusting the sails while I'm doing this and playing with the rudder, but in puffy conditions, it's just difficult. I'm going to be approaching the mark. That's the offset mark by me right now. The weather mark, we're going to be approaching on port, so it's going to be a little tough. And they're completely headed now. You can see how low we're having to head, that I'm having to head. Now the wind comes back in from the right, so really shifty at this point. So I am pinching to try to get up to the mark. Am I going to make it? Yeah, I pretty much went head to wind here. Actually looks like I got over on the port side with that wind shifting around. But I did get around the mark. Now I need to make sure I can lay the offset mark. Got the sails out a fair amount. I have a telltale on the top of my boat. I use that quite a bit when I'm going downwind to see where that wind's coming from, so I can set my sails, as opposed to letting the wind push the sails around and then trying to figure out where the wind's at, having looked at the sails. I think a telltale on top of the boat's really important. Okay, well, I'm not in very good shape. I probably have more boats in front of me than behind me. We're working downwind. We're going to go down to a reach mark down here. I'm just looking for wind on the water. Again, it's still puffy. Kind of a drag race at this point. Boats are spread out fairly well. So, got a reasonable start, but I didn't. I think I didn't play those puffs very well. I'm certainly not in very good position right now. So my work's cut out for me. I just need to get working on the boats ahead of me and try to pass them. And of course, that's easy goal to say. The question is, how do you do that? So since we don't have a race number 1, I'm going to stay with this race just a little bit more, and we'll see how things develop. So I've got 4 boats in front of me, 2 boats that are relatively close. Hopefully I'd be able to pick up at least 2 of them if I'm doing a good job. Not sure about the other 2. They're in pretty good shape. So we're just reaching at this point. This is pretty much a parade till we get to the offset mark for the reach. Now we're close hauled. Looks like that wind's still puffy. The boat's bouncing up and down. I think that's the red boat in the foreground. He's having some of the difficulties too. He's bouncing up and down. It's just it just makes it difficult sailing. So that wind shifting around, just very fluky. It's difficult to do too much in these conditions. You try to do the best you can. Looks like I'm making some ground on the two boats that were ahead of me. I think if I tacked right now, I would be behind them. We'll just have to hold on to the starboard tack. See how that wind works. I'm hoping for a shift from the left that will get to me first, plus get me reaching, or get me pointing a little bit higher on port when I do tack over. So I'm pretty much on the far side of the pond. There I have. I've just tacked, and now I'm on port and I'm close hauled. The see if I'm going to cross this starboard tacker. Now, big wind shift. Again, winds up and down. The boats in the foreground, you can see how high they're pointing. They're basically going straight up the pond on starboard tack. Port tacks come back in a little bit. I've got my sails opened up a little bit. When it gets light and the boat stands up, I want to keep the boat moving, not pointing. Worry about keeping the boat moving, not pointing too much when the wind gets light. There's, again, some nice puffs coming in, basically overpowering the boat. And the wind just doesn't attach to the sails when it gets like that. But again, that's the challenge in conditions like this. Okay, so I did manage, I believe, to pass one of the boats. Still one just about 3 or 4 boat lengths ahead of me that's, I'd like to think it's in reach. The 2 boats in front of him are pretty far down there, so I'm going to need some real luck to be able to take care of them. Again, at this point, I'm looking at the telltale on the top of my boat. I'm trying to figure out, am I on the right jibe or not, looking at that telltale. The boat will help tell me that, but I can figure out what kind of angle I want to be sailing to the wind. As the wind gets light, I find for the Soling 50, I want to sail it a little bit higher to keep my boat speed up. And then when the wind fills in and it puffs a little bit, I try to drive down. So what I want to do is come up when the wind gets light to keep my speed up, and when the puffs are up and the boat speed picks up a little bit, try to go down, try to drive down. So I'm always trying to work to leeward. Going straight downwind in light air is pretty difficult to make too much, to get too much speed out of that. So I'm getting a little separation from the boat on the left. Not sure if that's good or not. Matter of fact, it looks like all 3 of the boats are kind of gone to the left a little bit. That means they're high, and at some point, because that wind's over our left shoulder right now, it's coming over the port side, port stern, that they're going to have to go downwind, and I've got a pretty good angle now headed toward the leeward marks. So, you know, we've kind of bunched up a little bit here. And I've decided I'm going to have some clean air and not get in the gang. So this is a gate. I'm going to take the southernmost mark. The other 3 boats have all taken the northernmost mark. And it looks like 2 of the boats kind of had a collision or have gotten entangled a little bit. But they're struggling, or they went into a hole. Not sure which of those. But they're struggling down there. Now they're going. I'm on the far side of the pond. I've had good air going out from that gate. I've just tacked on to port. Again, really good air. Boat's getting knocked over.
Yep.
I've got a reasonably good lift going on here.
Pick your own lift.
I like clear air. I'll do a lot to keep my air clear, even if it means going the wrong direction for a while. So in this case, I have passed all 3 of the boats that were ahead of me by a fair amount, due in some part to luck. I certainly would easily admit to that. But also looking at the water and realizing a couple of the basics, like, you know what, sailing in a group of boats is not going to be fast. So I've got a reasonably good lift going on here. I'm taking the boat in the shore. It's going to get pretty shallow here, so I'm going to have to bail out at some. There we go. Just bail out. And again, boat's heeling over. You know, that's too much heel at that point. I mean, you can see all the keel's almost exposed. The boat is not making good speed to weather. At that point, you just crack the sails off a little bit. Crack the sails off a little bit, get the boat moving a little faster, even though you're not pointing as high as you might otherwise. That gives you better speed to make good to weather. So I wound up coming back in that race and winning it, so I was pretty happy about that. So that's a recap of the Soling races, at least the last 2 for today, and hope to see you at next month's Sail Point race report. Take care.